Good. I love that. I'm pretty proud of that.
That's great. That's great.
Yeah.
Yo, guys, welcome to our very first episode, aka the introduction. This is the Revolutionary Rhetoric.
Yeah. Hello, everyone. How we doing? First episode, first introductions. I guess to start, just kind of a little background on what we plan to do or what this is. Podcast, both audio and video formats. So video to YouTube, audio to wherever you get your podcasts.
Yeah, pretty much.
And then some clips to socials. Right?
Yeah, I think I'll be doing clips on TikTok, clips on Instagram, and you'll probably see YouTube Shorts as well as the whole full video.
Yeah.
You know,
Okay.
you gotta expand your outreach. It's kind of hard getting like full videos having large massive amounts of views. It's
Sure.
just how it is today.
Diversified.
Exactly,
Yeah.
diversified. Don't put all your eggs in one basket, as they say.
I'm Tyler. I guess we could say, I don't know, I was debating on whether or not I should. I'm a teacher, a ninth grade history teacher in the Seattle area, a member of Communist Party USA, avowed Marxist-Leninist. Yeah, I mean, that's me.
Well, I am Kenan. I reign from the country of Bosnia, the glorious country. I am Bosnian. I am also part of the CPUSA. We recommend to join, especially if you're a leftist. It's a great organization. Where did we leave off on that? What else did you say that I should add?
I don't know. That's it. Whatever you want to add.
I don't know.
Whatever you feel like adding. I mean, we can kind of go a little further into kind of like who we are as leftists, quote unquote leftists. I mean, I could say I began my leftist journey kind of as most people do, I think, kind of liberal Democrat, blue no matter who kind of guy, as cringe as it is now to look back on. I remember voting for, I think, the midterm elections 2006 would have been my first election.
God damn, man, you old.
I'm old. I turned 35 yesterday, actually.
Oh, dude, happy birthday!
Thanks,
totally
man. I
forgot.
appreciate it. Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, I think that was my first election. I believe I registered to vote. No, that's not right. I was born in '88. That can't be right. I think my first election was 2008. I think I voted for Obama, his first term in 2008.
Classic.
Yeah, I think
Classic
that was
liberal.
my first election. I would have been 20. Well, no, I would have been 20 years old. I can't remember. Maybe I did vote for the midterms in 2000.
It was 2008, so I would have been 13.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
I would have
Fair
voted
enough.
illegally.
Yeah.
I did not vote illegally. I promise. Don't come for me.
Not that anybody cares, or
No.
not that I care, I suppose. Yeah, so that was me for a long time, kind of just liberal Democrat. Voted for Obama twice. Would have voted for him a third time, as the liberals say.
4 more.
And then I don't know, I think sometime around like 2018, 2019, and then certainly 2020 with the kind of BLM, that whole era of COVID/BLM really kind of just opened my eyes. And then it was a Bernie thing first in 2016 that kind of brought me to like social democrat or democratic socialist. I guess I don't think I would consider myself democratic socialist yet. I was still in the liberal camp, but I liked Bernie. And then in 2020, that was full on socialist Bernie. And then slowly over time started looking into like the more the groups, the leftist groups. I joined SRA. I joined DSA first, but that just felt like just a slightly more progressive wing of the Democratic Party to me. So they just weren't really doing enough for me.
Yeah.
So I went a little further left, joined the SRA, and then led my way to CPUSA, and I've been a happy communist member of the Communist Party USA ever since.
Well, a freaking commie over here.
Yeah. 3 years now in the CPUSA. First,
wow, really?
Well, first in Phoenix, and then now.
It's still the same organization,
Yeah.
Just a different region.
Just a different chapter. Yeah.
I honestly have only been in the CPUSA 3 months now.
Okay. Yeah.
3 months.
Yeah, and I should preface that I wasn't super active in the Phoenix Club. I was pretty active for the first year or so, but then I was finishing my degree to be a teacher, and being a teacher and student teaching plus going to school full time, so it was like 80 hours a week or whatever, plus working part time. So I just kind of fell off the last like year or two of being in Phoenix. But since moving to Seattle this past summer, I've really ramped up my engagement with CP.
Well, I think you can only do so much. You know, you have a full-time job, you might not, or it might have a family, dogs, friends,
All of the above.
other hobbies. I mean, God forbid you want another hobby. So you got to make sure you got to, get all of your things that you have in your ordinary life before you can actually invest a lot of time and stuff into the CPUSA or any other political organization, really.
Yeah, sure.
As for myself, I mean, I guess I kind of went down that hole a little bit. So like I grew up with parents that were born in Yugoslavia, so they grew up under like a socialist system for the most part, and they always talk fondly of it. So I grew up with ideas that universal health care, housing, and all that, just a human right. That's just how it was, and what the hell is this kind of system? And so I didn't become politically active, I would say, or at least I didn't follow politics until like 2011, 2012, when there was like that huge raid on Gaza by Israel.
Right,
that kind of activated like my empathetic response to the Palestinians, which started just this whole tumbling of into politics. And then I actually I got to owe it to Kyle Kalinske from Secular Talk. I just randomly clicked on his video. It was an interesting title, shout out to Kyle. And basically I disagreed with the guy the whole time for like a year, but I kept watching his videos. I don't know why. Like he pissed me off, but he made great points.
Yeah.
Because when I was younger, I was a bit more conservative. I grew up Muslim. I guess I'm Muslim now by default, but I'm not really religious at all. I don't eat like pork, but I'm still drinking and stuff.
That's the extent of it, just pork.
Yeah, pretty much. I don't eat pork. I used to eat only halal meat for like 9 years.
No, okay.
Yeah,
I didn't know that about you. I didn't know you're Muslim. That's
yeah,
cool.
yeah. But I think half of Bosnians are Muslim. About half.
That's the Turkish ancestry, right? Or
Yeah,
that comes
well,
from
well, that's the Ottoman influence.
Well, yeah, sure.
Yeah. Most of us don't have that much Turkish in us. I'm sure a lot of us have a little bit of Turkish blood. A lot of rape was bound.
Sure.
During about 400 or 500 years, especially the very beginning. But over time, people kind of like integrated, settled in. A lot of culture came from that area. But anyways, and so growing up, my parents kind of learned that whole history and how things worked over there. And then as I grew up and I actually became open-minded to like, what the hell is going on? How does this work? You grow up. And that happened with Kyle. I started listening to him, and I realized, oh, okay, this guy actually makes great points. I disagree with him, but he's actually changed my mind. And for me, I'm a hard-headed motherfucker.
Sure.
I don't get my mind changed very often. I'm always got to be right, and I guess it's a negative thing of mine, but it is what it is. I'm just hard-headed and rebellious, but he actually changed my mind, and he's a social democrat. You know? And so that's what began that whole with actual politics. And when Bernie came around, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm definitely a fucking socialist.
Sure. Yeah, I started, that was kind of the introduction for me as well. Not Kyle Kalinske, but actually like the Young Turks. And then
oh yeah. Well, he's part of the Young Turks actually when he first started.
Oh, okay. That may have been back in the day. I just remember Cenk and that guy, I think his name was Ben back in the day, and then Anna Kasparian, which nowadays, that's a whole other thing. They've kind of gone off the deep end now. But back in the day, that was kind of my gateway into kind of not only like leftism, quote unquote, but also just like being more news minded and more current events, because they're little bite-sized kind of videos, kind of like how Second Thought is now, or First Thought is what their new thing. But like that was kind of the social democrat version for me back in the day, and then that kind of led me to like the others, David Pakman and the Majority Report, Sam Cedar stuff.
Nice.
So that was all kind of like in my oeuvre of like just of content I was consuming, which was all kind of progressive, vaguely leftist. I wouldn't say any of them are socialists, but like well, I guess the Kyle Kalinske and the Young Turks, I think they would have been considered that back in the day.
Maybe,
but I don't know.
But Kyle Kalinske doesn't consider himself socialist. Yeah. I think he is deep of hearts. I wouldn't say he's like a straight up Marxist, but I think he's like some version of a socialist. But he doesn't like to say, because I always hear him say that like, I don't want the government making my shoes. I'm like, Kyle, that's not how it works, Kyle. When the government doesn't make your shoes. That's not what communism is. Communism is when government runs everything.
Yeah, communism was when government makes your shoes.
The communism is when the government does stuff.
Yep.
Socialism is when the government does stuff. And it's more socialism the more stuff it does.
The government does something.
Yeah, Richard Wolff.
You said Marxist, so I guess that's the question. Do you identify let me say, how do you self-identify as far as like political ideology?
I would say I am a Marxist first, an anti-capitalist. Now, how we go into that, I would say I am like a Marxist Titoist.
Okay.
I like a lot of Lenin's things. A bloody revolution, I just don't see as, the stand-all be-all, but I do respect it, and especially in the time that they lived in the early 1900s, made total sense. Nowadays, a lot of the stuff that Lenin says to do, when it like state and revolution,
Sure.
it's not really like you can't really do that kind of stuff today.
Yeah, you'll have to explain to me more as we go on. Maybe we'll have a whole episode just about like each of our own ideologies, because you're gonna have to teach me more about that because I'm not familiar with Marxist.
Hey man, I'm not the 100% like read on everything.
That's your Yugoslavian heritage as a Tito. Yeah.
Titoist, the problem with that is a lot of time over time it kind of broke down because they let in little capitalism here and there, and they succumbed in, and that's when it fell apart.
Okay, well, if it's depending on how it's implemented,
they're like a market. Basically, they're market socialists.
Yeah. Well, that's essentially China's economy now, right? It's at the national and federal level that things are nationalized, but as you go down to the smaller markets and cities, there's smaller kind of quote unquote capitalist markets.
Yes, but the market socialism that was in Yugoslavia was basically what was called a worker owned. All of it was worker owned. The government, I guess, had its own entities when it came to like the environment, when it came to like the military and stuff like that. But a lot of the industries, there were still companies that still had an end to make. They had employees, they had everything, and you didn't work for the government. It's like PUD, But imagine if PUD was completely owned by the workers inside. So it's a company that works for the government, but they are not the government. So that's kind of an idea of market socialism from Titoist perspective.
We'll go into that deeper later. That's cool.
There's a lot going on.
Yeah, I mean that's one thing which I was going to say we don't want it to devolve into, but actually, you know what? As Marxists, I don't mind just devolving into like history lessons and just book clubs, which is that's fine. To answer my own question, I am on the Marxist Leninist side more. I'm fine with bloody revolution. It's fine. If it needs to happen, it needs to happen. Now, obviously, like what that looks like in 2023 and on, obviously, it's not going to be the same as what it looked like from 1917 to 23 or whatever, 22. But yeah, I mean that's always like that's the classic cliche, right? Is like Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos are not going to give up their wealth. Voluntarily.
No.
At some point, there's going to be force.
Oh yeah, don't get me wrong. I am a revolutionary, but I don't think I'm going to be like, all right, cock and load the gun. Let's go get them.
That's not your first.
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. I mean, I'm pro trying to persuade the mass majority of the public as far as we possibly can. But I think I don't have to speak for anything once the entire society and system breaks down because capitalism fails. I think it'll do it itself. But I'm not like pro like 100%. Let's grab a gun and just march on the government right now. I'm
storm the Bastille, as it were.
I'm like, my friend, there's a drone strike waiting for you. I don't think you could do much with your shotgun against a drone strike.
Yeah, All right, cool. We should have a separate conversation about what the revolution looks like.
Yeah, exactly.
We have so many ideas. We have so much to explore about each other, about history. What kind of let me ask, what kind of like and I don't mean to put you on the spot. And I can say not much for myself too, if that makes you feel better. I was going to ask you, what kind of theory have you read? Like how well versed are you as a Marxist? As Marxism,
I'm a moderate. I'm moderately versed. I am not a bookworm. I don't like books. That, like, don't get me wrong. People that read are, props to you.
I read so much.
I can't. Like it's because I have like my ADHD does not allow me to concentrate. I can read it, but I don't retain anything. Sure. My format is videos. I am a huge documentary watcher. And so if somebody puts out a documentary on YouTube, on Netflix or whatever, oh God, I'll sit there for 4 hours and I'll learn like a sponge, right? But reading, like right now I'm rereading the Communist Manifesto, and I'm just like, dude, I mean.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I've read that a few times now, and it's not a fun read. Marx, like we were talking about this. I was talking about this with another Marxist recently. There's certain communists that are fun to read because they're like snarky and funny, and Mao is definitely one of those. If you haven't read much Mao, pull a couple of his books off the shelf. He's funny, he's snarky. It's a little like sassy sometimes. Yeah. It's actually like pretty breezy, and it's a lot more accessible. And then if you switch over to somebody like Marx or even Engels to a certain extent, less so Engels, but mostly Marx, where an entire page will be one sentence of just like the longest winded like therefores and howevers and hithertos, and it's just not easy to read, and I get that. Marx is not an easy read. He's a very verbose guy, not easy to read.
Yeah, I mean Das Kapital is like 3 volumes. It's like the trilogy of
like
Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
I mean, but here's the thing. for me, it's hard to read Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
But
I've never read Lord of the Rings.
I've read the first and the third when I was younger, and a little bit.
Second?
And the Hobbit. I've read the Hobbit as well. I couldn't pertain anything.
Yeah.
Right. For the most part, but when they put on the movies or they put on like, even like the Silmarillion, and people are making the history of Tolkien and
Those like
and the
entire
world.
college classes.
Oh
you could
yeah.
take, yeah.
I'm like, I love this. This is
Yeah.
like a fantasy land that I would love to live in. You know.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Lord of the Rings, the movies.
I'm
The
fanatic.
idea of it. Yeah, I'm a big fan of the idea of Lord of the Rings, but no, I've never read those books. I mentioned just previously that I am a big reader, but I need to clarify that I'm a big like fiction reader. I read a lot of Stephen King, so like
Okay.
I don't want to claim that I'm some well-read Marxist.
I don't read fiction.
Yeah, I read a lot. I mostly just read Stephen King, but I read a lot of like fantasy and sci-fi and stuff. But I've read quite a few. I mean, I've read a lot of Engels, a lot of Marx. I have a few Stalin books I just ordered, so I'm reading a couple of those, and then also like a lot of Mao and just random, like Marxist.org. Shout out to Marxist.org if you're unfamiliar.
Marxist.org. Shout out.
Go there.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just everything. It's every Marxist work ever made is free in PDF form. So
that's fantastic.
you can just literally, it's all just linkable. It's just a web-based thing. It's not, and they even have audio versions of a lot of it. You can just press play on their website. So
see, that'd be for me.
Yeah.
I've done a few audiobooks.
The one catch is that it's a web-based thing, so you have to kind of leave your web browser open. So on a phone, it's not the most convenient thing.
Why don't they make an app?
I don't know.
Marx.
But shout out to myself. Plug for me right here. If I can plug my own stuff for a second. I am in the process of recording those books. I have tons of Marxist literature, and I am just recording myself reading them. It's not the most exciting thing in the world, but if you are a person that prefers audiobooks, I wanted to do this specifically because I wanted to keep a single feed of everything on a podcast app. So I'll be hosting them as podcasts. So if if you like Spotify, if you like Apple Podcast or Stitcher or whatever you get your podcasts, there will just be me sounding much like this, just reading Marx, Engels, Mao. I have a full list. I have like 40 books I'm going through. I've only done 2 so far. It takes forever. But shout out to Marxist Readings Podcast.
I don't know what you're talking about. Your voice is beautiful, so there you go.
Marxist Readings Podcast. Check it out, guys.
Anyways, where were we?
I don't know.
It's gonna be the sum of it, isn't it?
I was talking about I'm a Marxist-Leninist.
Yes.
And I say that without a huge I don't want to say without a huge understanding of what that means, because I understand what that means, but also like I'm open to alternatives, right? Like you could convince me to follow the ways of Tito.
Perhaps,
I'm here to learn. I'm just keeping my mind open. I just like reading the books, having conversations with fellow Marxists. That's the great thing about CP is anytime we have any kind of get together, we just start chatting and I learn more, and that's kind of what it's all about, I guess. That's dialectical materialism, son.
Hell yeah, brother.
Hell yeah, brother.
Hell yeah, brother.
Give me a hell yeah!
I think there's also one thing to keep in mind when reading these things. A lot of them were written 50 years ago, 100 years ago, 150 years ago.
Yeah,
so
I mean,
a lot of this time is
Manifesto
for their time.
170 years ago, 1848, I think it was published. Yeah, so
a lot of this stuff was written in a whole different time. So when reading, always have that nuanced perspective that whatever you're reading, it's detailed to that time. So
yeah,
that's what I was talking about, like with like Marxist Leninism, with Leninism, what he was saying was perfect for his time. But in my opinion, like if you were to incorporate Leninism right now, it just wouldn't work 100%. Like, okay, if you're going to, make the dictator for the proletariat,
yeah,
do you know how politically upsetting that would be for global politics? How well would that actually work? In the 1900s, majority of the countries had a dictator, so it made sense. So how well can you institute a dictatorship by the people for the people without looking like a legitimate dictator?
Yeah.
I mean, that's literally what they did, because Tito did the same thing for Tito, for Stalin, these people are dictators. They are evil. Look at these people, Fidel Castro. But in reality, they were just people trying to set up a system before they let it go. But they never let go. They never let it go into a democracy again.
Yeah.
They just held on to that dictatorship. And that's what happened with Lenin, where he died and wasn't able to finish what he started.
Yeah.
So what are we thinking with this podcast? What is the future of this podcast? What do we want to do?
Well, I think for one, news and commentary. We should also mention we're I think I did say in the Seattle area, but Pacific Northwest is definitely where a lot of our kind of our perspective is coming from. But I believe we want to do news and current events and current events, politics from just around the world. I mean, I know that we're ramping up into an election season, so that's definitely going to shape a lot of the conversation over the next year or so. I mean, it's about a year and 2 months before the election, so that's going to be a nightmare of a year, but here we are.
Oh, it's going to be a great year. Are you kidding? I'm excited. It's my favorite time of the year. It's like Christmas for me.
You want to watch Biden and Trump debate again?
Oh, absolutely. This is going to be like two old men who don't know where they are yelling at each other.
Yeah.
It's content. It's comedy. It is pure like,
Yeah.
oh my God, like comedy from like the 1600s, almost like, God, satirical comedy.
So definitely a lot of that. I mean, I would definitely plan for doing like live stuff around live commentary around a lot of the election stuff coming up, just current events, news, and then any time we have a down week or a down time, fill it with history / theory /
Yeah, exactly.
whatever.
We'll break that. We'll try to ourselves read into a certain sect of a Marxist ideology, and then try to break it down for everybody in like basic layman's terms.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll do maybe 1 week we'll do Marxist Titoism and Leninism and Maoism and Stalinism and we'll Trotskyism if you call Marxist, but
Yeah.
we can still go into it. It's
What's
still
funny?
an ideology.
I was talking to somebody recently. The Trotskys are like winning, man. Not really. I don't want to say that, but like on social media and like their marketing, I guess, for lack of a better term, I see Trotskyist organizations everywhere. Anytime I go to a farmer's market or anywhere in Seattle, there's always Trotskyists on the corner selling their newsletters and just selling their newspapers and stuff. And I'm just like, Trotskyists have such a huge presence that it's frustrating.
I think it's also about the view, how people view, because people are like, okay, we had these dictators, so-called, with like Lenin and then Stalin coming in, and those have like negative connotations to them. And so when you have like Trotsky, who was like, he was supposed to be the next one to take over after Lenin, but Stalin, messed everything up and became like an evil man of sorts. I mean, which is honestly true to a certain extent. He was kind of a psychopath for a little bit.
Yeah, he was definitely. I get a lot of flack from my like less leftist or more liberal friends because I defend Stalin quite a bit, and I still will. I will defend Stalin as how do I phrase this? It's hard to put into words why and how I defend Stalin. I defend Stalin as a Marxist and as like an idealist and as like a theorist. In practice, sure, he was a terrible leader and he did a lot of terrible things, but there's a lot of good stuff that Stalin did that definitely gets overlooked and overshadowed. And from like a military history perspective, especially like during World War II, a lot of his decisions there, a lot of his theory. If you read his books, he's also a pretty good writer. He wrote a book called Dialectical and Historical Materialism, I believe.
I heard the opposite. Yeah. I heard he was a lousy writer.
It reads like a textbook.
Okay.
But I'm into that.
Fair enough. You are a history teacher.
I'm a history teacher. So his work literally reads a lot like textbooks, which I'm kind of into.
Listen, Stalin saved World War II.
Sure. Stalin saved the world from the Nazis.
True.
And, he'll always have my eternal thanks for that.
But I also think he was the downfall of the USSR in the end. That's my opinion.
I mean, I wouldn't go
I think he took it to a certain direction where it just went downhill from there.
I don't know if I'd agree with that. We can have that conversation.
Yeah.
We should do a whole episode on just Stalin. That's such a big topic.
Yeah, it is.
Stalin is such a talking point among leftists. Like there's two camps, either where you're like, well, I guess three, right? You're either pro Stalin, you're tanky, the quote unquote tanky, but for the meme, right? Stalin did nothing wrong meme.
Yeah.
Then you're like the Trotsky side of it, that other side, maybe not like Trotskyist, but I just mean like that far side of that spectrum, which is like, no, Stalin was an evil dictator. He ruined communism for the world. And then you're somewhere in the middle, which I think is where the truth lies, which is, somewhere in between, right? Like Stalin of the time was a flawed leader, made some decisions that were probably not for the best, but ultimately, whatever. But let's move away from Stalin for a minute.
Correct. Let's go.
And just get back on as far as like future direction. So we talked about current events, politics, and then like stuff like what we just said. That was a little mini taste of like a Stalin episode.
Yeah,
or
there
like,
you go.
Or maybe we'll read a book and then do something, or maybe like in time for holidays like May Day, May 1st stuff. I know we talked about the thing for CP, stuff like that. So that's kind of the plan for it.
Yeah, but we'll be way more prepared.
Yeah.
We'll make on top of this video, we'll make slideshows. We'll throw photos while we're talking.
Oh, speaking of interviews too, I know there's some local people we want to interview. There's definitely the president of our CP club. I'd love to talk to him. I know Lady Izdahar, I know is a local kind of Seattleite. Yeah, so there's cool stuff we have in the works. We want to try to get going.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be hard to get people to interview at first because we're just starting. But I think
maybe think not our CP friends.
No, of course, So we're definitely if you're watching this and you're in the political sphere and you want to jump in, send us a DM. That'll be fun.
Yeah, send us an email. Speaking of emails, you know where to find us. We can throw down all our socials.
So on TikTok, it's Jesus Christ. Rev Rhetoric Pod.
Yep.
Yes.
It's Revolutionary Rhetoric Pod. Instagram. You just search Revolutionary Rhetoric, you'll find us. And then the email, if you do want to reach out, revolutionaryrhetoric@gmail.com. Just all one word, Revolutionary Rhetoric, no underscores, no nothing, spelled out.
Yeah, there we go.
Follow us on Instagram. Follow us on Twitter, TikTok. Search Revolutionary Rhetoric, you'll find it.
Yeah, you'll find us. That's
all of the socials and links will be in the show notes below.
Yes. And all of our lives will be on YouTube because Twitch has failed everybody.
Yeah. Speaking of lives, we should be doing some live stuff too.
Yeah, that'll be interesting.
Any of the political stuff, we can just do live to YouTube or live to Twitch, and then.
I think especially with debates, I think that's a good way to go into it.
Yeah, for sure. I'm excited for that. That'll be fun.
It'll be fun. It'll be fun. It'll be a little bit more.
I mean, we'll get some popcorn. We'll get some drinks. It'll just be a spectacle.
I'll have to grab like a couple of drinks.
Do you drink? Yeah. Oh yeah, you mentioned that earlier.
Yeah, I don't. I'm not an alcoholic, but a few beers a week is good for you. Good for the soul.
Well, I got a fridge down here in the basement. I got plenty of fridge. I brew my own beer, so I got plenty of ciders.
You brew your own beer?
Oh yeah.
Am I gonna get alcohol poisoning?
No, they're good. All I have left right now is some cherry chocolate thyme ciders. So I have fresh thyme, fresh cherry, fresh cacao nibs I brewed with the cider.
Cacao nibs?
Yeah, fermented it with the
My
cacao.
dude is bougie. Look at this.
I got my bougie ciders.
Sure, you're proletarian.
Yeah. Listen, it's all homemade booze. What's more proletariat than homemade booze?
That's very true. That is very true.
Just because I like it to taste good.
Yeah, there
all
you
right,
go.
Cool, man. Well, cool. I think that's it from us. If there were an outro song, we'll play it here.
Is there an outro song?
No. But there can be. I can just do the intro song in reverse. And then fade in.
Okay.
That's all I think.